There we go. And now to introduce our designers. So we have here Jackie from the Woolly Badger. We have Andrea from Yarn Andy, and we have Yvonne from Red and the Wolf. So I'm going to ask you to start by introducing yourself, please. Can I start, please, with Yvonne?
Hi, I'm Yvonne. I'm German. I live here in Cologne and I've been knitting and doing crochet since I was a kid, but as a teenager I lost interest, and when I got pregnant about 20 years ago, I wanted to make all the cute baby things and taught myself again and haven't looked back since then. So that's how my crafting started, and I design basically everything that strikes my fancy. Not many garments, but accessories, home decor, all kinds of things. If I get an idea, I make it.
Wonderful. Okay, and can we move now to Andrea, please?
Yes, hi. So I'm Andrea. I am a Romanian, but living in Germany. I'm in Thüringen. And I've been designing for 8 years now, I think. And I learned to knit and crochet as a child. And again, I forgot about it until university. And then I started again about 10 years ago. And yeah, I design mainly accessories. And I've started to also design garments.
Fantastic. And then last but not least, over to Jackie.
Hello. So I am based in Bristol in the UK, and it seems to be a common story. I learned to knit as a child. My babysitter actually taught me. I think she was trying to get me to just sit down, and then stopped as a teenager. And then in my sort of mid-20s, I was working in a big corporate job and was off work with anxiety, and a therapist suggested I try knitting, and I went, "Oh, I used to do that." So I started again and just became completely obsessed with it. And I have been, so that was longer ago than I care to think, about 13 or 14 years ago. I have been designing for 4.5-ish years. I was talked into publishing a pattern by a friend of mine at the very start of the pandemic. And I publish quite a lot of garments these days, although I do also do some accessories as well. And I also teach. So I teach at a local yarn store and a fabric store here in Bristol. So yeah, that's me.
Sorry, I didn't wait for the unmute there. It's great hearing everybody's stories. I love hearing about how designers get into designing and publishing patterns, because I don't think it's something anybody ever says when they're at school. I'm going to be a knitwear designer when I grow up, or a crochet designer, or at least I've never heard it. So I'm going to move on to some of the questions now that were suggested by members of or participants in the Fasten Off Yarnalong. There was a survey earlier. And the first one is about how you begin a new design. So maybe think of some of your designs, or typically how you would set about designing. And if we could start with Andrea on that, please.
Okay, I will show you my secret method. I make a lot of sketches. So every time I get an idea, which is a lot, I make a sketch. I draw it out. I actually make multiple sketches of things, and sometimes they take years. This is still not created. I think I made this 5 years ago, and I'm still working towards it. And there's also the iterative aspect. So you start with an idea, change something, add more details or remove some details, and then you get a whole range of designs. And after I have the sketches, I find some yarn. I have a lot of different types of yarn. Make some swatches, see what hook size I could use. Usually it's crochet or Tunisian crochet. And yeah, then I just make a chart usually. I make the sample and then I write up the pattern. So that's my process.
Fantastic. It's really nice to hear. can we move on to Jackie for that question, please?
Oh, I am nowhere near as organised and sensible as that. I spent a little while beating myself up because my design process is somewhere between haphazard and chaotic. In that I will just suddenly get an idea for something and I'll be like, right, I have to cast that on right now. And so I very often won't swatch. I don't think I have ever drawn a sketch for anything unless it's for a submission. I quite often will cast on without actually knowing all the details of what it's going to look like. Like I'll have a vague idea of like, you know, where I'm starting in terms of am I doing it top down or bottom up, and I'll know like a rough construction. You know, whether I'm doing a raglan or a circular yoke or whatever. But beyond that, there'll be one little like hook of an idea that I will be going with. And then I will make it up as I go along, quite literally. And we'll just sort of see how it's coming. And there's a lot of sort of holding it up and going, okay. Then probably what I'll do is finish the sample, get distracted, do the same thing again on another design. And then after about 3 or 4 months of doing that, have a period where I have to go back to all of my samples, figure out what I was doing, reverse engineer the pattern, do all the grading, and curse my former self for just having knitted a load of stuff without really thinking about it. So I then knit a second sample as I'm writing the pattern to kind of finesse things a little bit more. And yeah, I tried doing like sketching things or doing grading before I start, but it just, I lose the, like, it sounds so pretentious, but I lose the creative spark if I try and force myself to do that. So I've just gone, you know, I'm just going to go with it this way. Works for me. So
That's great, because I think we have to work with what motivates us. But if we try and work in a way that doesn't fit with our creativity, as you say, it's just not going to work, is it? You know, there will be some designers who need the comfort of a nice structure around what they're doing, and there are others who want to kind of muddle through and come out with something beautiful at the other end. And so on to Yvonne.
I think I'm kind of in the middle of both of you. I sometimes have an idea and sketch it out or write some notes what I want in there and then look for yarn for what I need. Or sometimes I have a yarn and think, you need to be, and have an idea in my mind, and then I start. But after doing a lot of the cursing myself for not writing down what I did, I always have a notebook next to me and write down what I'm doing. If it doesn't work, it gets scratched out and no notes. My notes are very chaotic, but I at least have notes of which stitch pattern for how many rows, which decreases, increases for the shaping, and the basic things that I can then verify on my sample. Are the numbers actually right? And then use that to write it up. But the writing up can also be anytime from the next day to a few months later, depending on how many ideas I have in my head. Or sometimes I have all the ideas, I'm still working on something, then I try to write as many details down as I can for the other ideas so I don't forget about them anymore.
Oh, that's great. Yes, it is so varied, isn't it? How different designers come up with their ideas and how they start to actually fix them into a physical design. So we're going to move on to now, what was your hardest pattern to design and why? And I'm going to choose Jackie to start on that one, please.
I am wearing this for a reason. I think it was this one. So this is a raglan sleeved sweater of mine, which I think, sorry, bit of fluff, came out earlier this year, but it's a slip stitch colourwork motif on it. And raglans have always been a little bit of a bugbear of mine in that I think that sometimes there's sort of, I think we've probably all encountered the really ill-fitting raglan that just does the increase every other row. And so in the larger sizes, you end up with armholes down here and all of that. That drives me mad. So it was the sort of, the first part of the getting the compound raglan shaping so that the shape of it worked. and then getting the neck shaping right without ending up with, I also am not a big fan of where you have just a big band of plain colour at the top before a colourwork pattern kicks in. So trying to work out how to do that. And then I have got optional bust darts in it as well, and making sure they worked with the colourwork pattern and the maths all worked and all of that. And then because it is also, it's a very simple slip stitch pattern at the heart of it. It's one shade of 4-ply held with alternating shades of mohair, but trying to figure out how to write that as simply as possible. And I didn't want to do the old just take the stitches into pattern, and trying to work out striking the balance in the instructions between giving enough detail that newer knitters felt confident taking it on, but not so much that it became like a dissertation and was just, you know, the kind of pattern that you look at and go, that's too long and I can't be bothered.
Want the people to be able to find the instruction that they're working on and find their part of the instruction. It is really difficult in garments, especially well-fitting ones.
And so it was one of those ones where even though the actual garment itself isn't that complicated, and I often find this, it's the things that I think are going to be, that are in some ways the more straightforward to knit, can end up being the more difficult to write up. And I don't really, you know, I'm not entirely sure why that is. Like I've just working on a slip over which has got a textured pattern all over it. I'm getting all of the instructions for that completely correct. It's a challenge, but yeah, got there in the end. Got there in the end. Knitted 3 samples of this one along the way. So yeah.
Well, that's nice if you have 3 of those lovely pullovers to wear.
Yeah, and the first one is when I was working out the neck shaping, and so it's not quite how it ended up in the final pattern, and it's a bit of a thicker chunk, and then I was working out where to establish the sort of colour work. And annoyingly, I had swatched it. I did actually swatch it for once, but then in the finished garment, I just didn't quite like the look of it. So I knitted another one, and I wear that one, and I'll sort of sit there, and if people say, "Oh, I like your sweater," I'll be like, "Oh yeah, but this bit's not right." You know, that classic thing that I think a lot of knitters and crafters do, of like immediately point out the mistakes. Yeah,
definitely. So I'll move on to Yvonne with the same question. Your hardest design.
That would probably be my only multi-sized garment to this point, my acute angle shirt, because I had knit a lot of sweaters and shirts for myself at that point, but never really looked into how to make it work for other people. So I basically made this thing up for myself, and then people told me, "You got to publish it, that looks great." And I was like, but how? Help! And all the grading for different sizes, having a test with so many people, because I wanted all the sizes tested, preferably twice, because even at the same size, not everybody is shaped the same. And then having to adjust for the larger sizes because I trusted some size guideline and that did not work out. So it was really difficult for me, but also really rewarding to then get it right and to have people of all sizes with the finished garments going, look, it looks great on me. So yeah, that was a kind of the mix between the difficulty of, okay, I know how to do the math for my own size, but how on earth do I do it for others? Write it down so they can understand it because they are not in my head. And also make a huge pattern with many sizes in a way that it's not overwhelming when looking at it.
That's definitely a challenge, isn't it? And it's wonderful that you got it tested by so many people and you were able to get the fit right for all of them, because people's shapes, as you say, do vary a lot. So I'm going to pass that question on to Andrea now.
Mine is also a sweater. So I chose this one because it took almost a year to write. This is Tunisian crochet, and there aren't many graded patterns for modified drop shoulders with neckline shaping and shoulder shaping, and yeah, the sizes are a problem. The measurements that you need to grade to, because there aren't any standards that we can use in design. So I started with seeing what's out there, and I found, I think, 12 different tables, and I created my own table of measurements that I could use to grade this. And then, yeah, I did the math, and I only had testers for the smaller 6 sizes because Tunisian crochet is still a small community. Yeah, so that took a few months. I gave 4 months for the testing because it is sock weight yarn, so it's quite thin while working. So yeah, I think that was the biggest challenge. And now ideally I should be able to use these measurements to grade other patterns, but every pattern is different. So yeah. By the way, other designers can also use this table if they want to. It's published on my blog, so
Oh, that's
like
great.
Yvonne said, there aren't many resources for us. So
I'll add a link onto that in the chat in a moment when we go on to the next question. I think I know where your table of measurements is. So that's a huge undertaking there, going and finding out all of the measurements and improving on what's available there, even as part of the design for your pullover. So we're going to move on to the next question, and this is how you keep up your motivation during the testing and writing stage. I think we were all talking there about the beginnings of the design, and there's a lot of excitement at that stage that you've got this idea and you're going to experiment and plunge into finding out all the information you need. But the writing the pattern out, as some of you are mentioning, and trying to work out what you did originally, or trying to go and find the sizes that you want, or making it really work for everyone, which all of you have mentioned, can be a long process. So could you talk about how you keep your motivation up there? I'll start with Yvonne on this one, please.
Well, the writing is actually the part that I least like about designing. Because, all those difficulties, some things that seem so obvious to me, then I write it the way that it would make sense to me, and my testers go, "What? Are you missing a step there? I don't get how you got from A to B." And but. So that's something that it's got easier the more I wrote patterns, of course, because I learned from the experience, but it's always something where I'm going like, does it make sense to anyone that is not me? Or have I just written the most convoluted statement ever? And so that's something I try to push off. But once I get going, I usually stick to it. Just starting on the writing. That's why I said it can be anywhere the next day to a few months in the future, because I just can't be bothered to to do it. But the testing actually is fun for me. I don't need much motivation for that, because I get the feedback from the testers like, oh, that really makes sense, or can you explain this? And I always tell them there is no such thing as a stupid question, because if you question it, one of this small sample group, someone else will question it. So please ask, and I can rethink how to word it.
Oh, that's great. It's nice to hear that that's a really enjoyable part of it for you. I mean, in a sense, it's a bit like having a crochet along or a knit along with friends, especially if you get to know your testers. That
Yeah, and also I get to see what other people make from my pattern, which is always something I enjoy, whether it's my testers or customers, whoever makes my patterns, if I get to see it, how they use my instructions and their own ideas to make their own personal thing. That is always really rewarding for me, and it always makes me happy to see that.
That's lovely. It's such a thrill, isn't it, when you see something that's been created from one of your own designs, but with the person's own interpretation of that. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to pass that question over to Andrea.
Okay, so motivation for testing, I don't need any because I know exactly when the testing starts and when it ends, and in that time, people can give feedback. Some never give feedback, and that's sad, but sometimes they just finish the project, and that's awesome. And while testing happens, I do everything else. So I write up new patterns and prepare those for testing. Sometimes I have several testing calls at the same time, and that's not great because it's a bit stressful. So too many things. And as you know, when you get the feedback during testing, you have to go in the file and do the modifications. And sometimes I upload version 2, version 3 with the changes highlighted so people can see what changed between the original that they got and the new version. So there's no need for motivation to keep up with the testing.
And how about for the writing as well? We were wondering about your motivation during the
Oh,
writing period, which can be very long,
writing.
as you've mentioned.
Well, yeah, for writing, I take breaks as well. So I have all these ideas, I make samples, and I start writing. Sometimes I write based off of a chart, and I just sit down and do it and take a break, come back to it a week later or a month later. There's also a template that I use, so this makes it much easier. I just replace the text itself, and I'm sure that I always catch all the important bits which I used to miss at the beginning, but testers, they tell you when you forget things. So yeah. I don't know if I need motivation to write. I just write because I like the things I create. So I want them to become patterns. And the step between that is just doing the writing.
Oh, that's good. You keep the end goal in sight there and just take the steps slowly towards it. It's a good idea. You mentioned there about breaking it up with other tasks as well. So that sounds really helpful. So Jackie, can I pass that question on to you now, please?
Yeah. So I think when I started designing, like one of the biggest things I had to learn was that designing a pattern and writing a pattern are two separate skills. So you can design something absolutely beautiful, but be terrible at writing it up in a way that just doesn't make sense. And so that was quite a steep learning curve for me to be kind of like, okay, I need to actually learn what the heck I'm doing with writing this thing up now, which I feel really confident in these days because, you know, I've done it 40 plus times now. But along the way, I have kind of developed a little bit of a process, which is it's one of those things. Once I'm into the pattern writing, I enjoy it. I quite like the challenge. It feels like I'm really exercising my brain in working out, like, okay, how do I phrase this? How can I make this make sense? It's kind of that puzzle solving thing. But when I'm just sort of sat there looking at a garment in one size and thinking, oh Christ, now I need to get this into like 8 other sizes with all the variations, because I like to put fit variations and things in, it seems really overwhelming. So I break it down. So I will start off by, I'll do the bulk of the grading on my grading spreadsheet. Then I will kind of write the pattern outline. So like the sequence that the general construction, and then I will sort of have a little pause, maybe for a day or two, and then I'll come back and start writing the actual instructions. Then the next time I come back, I'll plug the numbers in, and then I'll inevitably realize there's some part of it I've forgotten to grade. I often forget to do like sleeve decreases or something, and then I'll be like, oh, damn it, I thought I'd done it. So I'll kind of break it down into little, I'll do it like for an hour or so at a time. And sometimes it'll be, you know, those 1 hour chunks over a week. Sometimes it'll take more like a month. Kind of depends on life and what gets in the way as well. And I make sure to reward myself as well, to be like, oh yeah, I've cracked that. Oh yeah, that was, and especially when there is something that I have been kind of thinking about for a long time in terms of how am I going to write that and approach that, I will reward myself with either a very good TV show or some food or something. But generally speaking, I don't like to sit down and start writing until I know that I can kind of crack it in that sitting. So there can be quite a long period where it looks like I'm doing nothing, but I'm wandering around the house trying to figure out a specific instruction and all of that. And that's where I get lots of like notes on my phone that will make no sense to anyone but me, me trying out wordings and things like that. So yeah. And as the others have said with testing, yeah, that's like just the kind of motivation for itself. It is amazing seeing something that started out as a little idea in your head being made by other people. And I will sometimes sit there and be like, oh my God, incredible. Yeah, I enjoy testing that. It used to really scare me at the start because I thought I was going to be, you know, imposter syndrome. I thought I was going to be found out and people would be like, what is this? This is terrible. But no, I like it now. So yes.
Well, that's really lovely to hear that all of you really, really enjoy the testing phase. I definitely, that resonates with me, what you just said there about Jackie, about being terrified initially and a little bit nervous about what the testers will think, especially if they're people who you know have tested a lot of patterns. And then suddenly getting to the stage where you just really enjoy it and you're really thankful for all the suggestions and help that they have. So we'll go on to another question now. And this one is whether you try and find a niche, a specific topic or type of design that you do, or whether you just go full on for designing what you like to make. And I think all of the kind of business coaches and so on that there are for crochet tell us so much how it's really important to find a specific niche and stick to that so you become a specialist and known for just one thing. And so many designers, especially newer designers, are very reluctant with that. So I want to know what, you know, what are your thoughts on that? I should ask, this is to start with Andrea, please.
Oh, I tried for many years to find a niche. I really tried, but I can't. So I just design everything. I try things out, see what comes up, and yeah, I've created amigurumi patterns, accessories, small and big, and shawls and clothing and blankets, and yeah, I think currently my niche is lace, so Tunisian crochet lace and regular crochet lace, and starting knitting lace as well. But yeah, I don't know if that's a niche. So I decided about 2 years ago that I would make my own niche, which means that I create patterns that are accessible and well written. So that's my niche for people who like relaxing projects. Yeah.
Well, that sounds great. So you've got a niche for the focus on your patterns and making them really accessible and easy to use, and a niche for your design style there of having this kind of lacy Tunisian crochet look. It's interesting to learn how that's grown for you. Can I move on to Jackie for the same question, please?
Yes, so I used to panic about my niche a lot the first couple of years when I was designing. I'd sort of sit there and go, I'd read all the sort of advice saying, you know, what problem are you addressing? Find your niche. And I'd sit there and think, I have no idea. And it really, like, I worried about it more than I probably should have in retrospect. Sorry, I just need to sneeze for a sec. Oh, there we go. There we go. And then I feel like I have kind of accidentally found a niche, which is fit and in particular bust shaping. Because I Somebody came on one of my online workshops once. She said heroically chested was her term, which I really, really enjoyed. But I think, you know, like almost everyone, I don't fit neatly into a size on a size chart. You know, certainly my bust measurement is out of kilter with the rest of my body, and having had 2 children, even more so than before. And I was getting annoyed with knitting sweaters that just didn't fit properly, and in particular with knitting like circular yoke sweaters that didn't fit and all of that. So I kind of, for my own personal interest and as a bit of a sort of personal challenge, decided to try and work out how to make circular yokes fit better, and started doing width-based sort of bust adjustments in those. And I put that in one of my patterns, which was the Big Jimmy Jap jumper. And then it kind of ran from there. And so now most of my garment patterns, unless they're like really oversized or maybe written for a publication that doesn't have the space to put loads of adjustments in, will have bust adjustments in them. And yeah, that seems to have become my niche now. And I don't force myself to stay in it all the time, because obviously you don't need like bust adjustments in hats. But I feel like that's kind of my thing. And a friend of mine once said to me, when I said I'd done an online workshop where I had like people from around the world, she was like, "Oh my God, you're an international boob wizard." And I was like, yes, I quite want that on a badge. So yeah, my niche found me, I think, ultimately.
That's an amazing niche, being an international boob wizard.
Boob wizard. I was like, do I want that on a badge or do I want it on a t-shirt?
Oh, I think a project bag.
Yes.
Oh, that's lovely. And can I move now on to Yvonne for the same question about your niche?
Yes. Well, I started with designing whatever came to my mind, or I learned a new technique and was like, but if I do this with it, and had a design idea. So my designs are a bit all over the place. I mean, I have the tagline modern day clothing and accessories with fairy tale sensibilities, which a friend of mine came up with, and I love it. I think my niche is basically patterns that look fancy but are rather straightforward to make. Like have some the shawl I'm wearing. It is a huge gradient shawl. It has some lace, it has some stockinette, it's a pie shaping. It looks impressive, but it actually is stockinette and a simple wavy lace pattern, and the increases are always in the stockinette because it's a pie shaping. So it is really easy to knit. It's just a big thing and it looks impressive. And that goes in a lot of my patterns, like and it is suitable for most people for everyday wear, if it's their style, of course. But it also always have this little bit extra that makes it stand out. But I also design home decor, blankets. I've made a little toy bookmarks, all kinds of things. If I have an idea, I make it and don't let myself be limited. And a lot of my things go a bit into the goth punk area because that's something, or I have some inspiration from that because that's something that's personally my style and my thing. So lace or ruffles or a bit of a distressed look to it, or things like that. So yeah.
Oh, that's lovely to hear about how that's developed for you there. I think a lot of your patterns, because I've looked at everybody's website before doing the panel today, yours look like they're going to be interesting to knit or interesting to crochet. I don't feel like I'm going to be doing the same thing over and over again and not learning something new. I feel like I might learn something new by working on some of your patterns. So that's nice to hear that you have made them very easy to make and work on as well there. Right, let's go to the next question. We have, oh, This is what I'm most excited for. What are we going to see from you next? Can we have a sneak peek or a little bit of information about what you're working on? Doesn't have to be something completely concrete as a finished design. It could just be some swatches or sketches or something. So let's know what's coming up in the future for your brand. Oh, and this is to Jackie to start, please.
So I am just, I said earlier about how I go through the phases of knitting all the samples and then needing to actually write them up. I'm just coming to the start of a big era of needing to actually write some stuff up. So I seem to be in a bit of a patchwork kind of kick at the moment. So sort of textures that look a bit patchworky, or, you know, I've got a cardigan design, which I've called the Bonnie cardigan because it's a little bit bonkers. In that there's two versions of it. One is a very plain grey cardigan. It's, you know, a patchwork texture of squares of stockinette and then squares of a simple cable pattern on the body with a big shawl collar, drop shoulders, plain sleeves. The grey one, very sedate, calm looking. I've also doing a intarsia hacked sample where all the squares of the patchwork are different colours. And then the sleeves are different colours to the colours of the body. And it looks like a unicorn's fever dream. And so it's kind of, it's to show that from one pattern you can do two very, very different things. So I've got that coming up. And then, yes, more cardigans that I need to write up and a couple of slipovers, just a lot of garments coming, basically. And a lot of trying to figure out how to get the adjustments and everything in amongst all these textures and all of that, which is what is taking me a while to write them up, because it's, yeah, not always completely straightforward.
Well, that sounds really exciting. You've got a lot coming out there. Very excited for your garment patterns.
Yeah, I think I've got a backlog of 6 that I need to write
6?
up. Yeah. Yeah.
Must be all of next year.
So if you see me on Instagram or something trying to cast on a new design, please shout at me and tell me to write up one of the ones I have in my, you know, writing queue, please.
I will do. Maybe I will do. No, I'm excited to see whatever you create. Okay, I'm moving over to Yvonne with the same question. What will we be seeing this year or the coming year from Red and Wolf Designs?
Yeah, first I have to say, I want to see what a unicorn's fever dream looks like. Pretty please, I want to see.
I'll find a picture on my phone and hold it up for you in a minute.
Thanks. Yeah, I've been on a crochet kick this year. After mostly doing knitting designs, but always thinking I need to do more crochet because I enjoy it as well. So I have already published some crochet things, just some smaller items. I have coming up this one. I know I'm late. It should be published already because Christmas is coming, but life happened and it's currently in testing. It will be published next week, hopefully, if nothing unforeseen happens. And I'm also working on my first crochet shawl, which will be the usual first pretty straightforward, but it will get an interesting edging in a gradient yarn. And I'm trying, where is it? That's the one. A crochet garment, kind of like a very easy boxy construction. This is more like a big sample and swatch. It's not my size, as you can see. It won't fit, not even with blocking. But I tried to figure out yeah, how much this yarn actually stretches and to get my size right, and made actually a bigger swatch with the, if it turns out right, perfect. If not, I at least know my math after it. And so that will be my first crochet sweater in multiple sizes, with most likely instructions on how to make it fit your body if you don't really fit into one of those sizes for whatever reason, or want to make it longer, want to make it a closer fit than because I want to make it a really simple, lacy slip over thingy that you can wear in summer over a tank top, or in winter over a long sleeve or something like that. Versatile garment. So yeah, some people like cropped sweaters, some like them longer. So I want to give those options in there while still providing clear instructions for if you want to make it the way I'm wearing it in your size, those are the instructions.
Oh, that sounds really interesting. And I love the color of your sample there. Purple's one of my favorites. It's beautiful.
Yeah, mine too. Purple, red, and lots of blacks for garments for me. For accessories, I go colorful because that always goes with black and gray. But for clothes, I stick also when I use color to the reds and purples.
Yeah. Oh, it's nice. If you've got a wardrobe where things really work together with each other, then yeah, that's really handy to have a kind of key colors that you use for your garments.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I'm going to pass this question on to Andrea, please.
I have so many things to write up, but next up, I think this one. This is Tunisian crochet mosaic, and it's an advanced technique. So you get the diagonals in here, and you also have some lace here and down here. So this one I'm hoping to write up and get tested soon. I also have knitting coming up soon. This is a knit version of Tunisian crochet design from 2 years ago, I think. And I made the sample now. I still need to write up the pattern. And then I have so many, so many small things. So yeah, a lot of hand accessories. Like I have a glove here, still working on it. Second pair samples, hats, cowls, stuff. A lot of things.
Wow, those are lovely. I really love having those kind of visual peaks there of things that we're going to see from your brand over the next year, and in all the different crafts as well. It's really, really lovely. And the bee shawl, that is amazing. That's really, really very nice to see.
Thank you.
So normally at this point, I will ask for some questions for the audience. We don't have an audience member with us at the moment. We did have one, and she's had to go, unfortunately. So I feel a bit spoiled that I get to ask you some bonus questions. So I'm going to start with one, I think, which may be more for Andrea and Yvonne, because I see you doing patterns in multiple crafts. So I was wondering if you have a very distinctive style in each of your crafts. So is your Tunisian crochet work very different to your knitting, or your crochet work different to your knitting, or so on? And I'll start with Yvonne for that one.
I don't think the styles are very different. Although I have to say, because I started with designing knitting patterns, even though I have done both crafts, I feel a lot more confident when I design something in knitting. And in crochet, I still overthink, like, but how do I do this? I have done it a gazillion times following a pattern. I just need to use that knowledge, but I'm still like, no, I'm not good enough at it. But yeah, I'm trying to overcome that by actually doing the thing this year and going into the next year and getting more crochet patterns out there, because I really want to do both, not just as crafts for myself, but for my designs. And I think I've been holding myself back, but my style is pretty much the same in both when I look at what I've done so far.
Well, that's nice to hear. I was wondering about that a little bit, because I know that sometimes people have certain techniques that they really love in one craft and don't love so much in the other craft. So I was thinking perhaps that would come through. But it was really interesting to hear you saying about crochet and how you wonder about different ways to do things, or how should I do that, even though you're familiar with it. And I think from writing crochet patterns and writing knitting patterns, I think I would say that knitting almost feels more bound to rules. It has certain rules, and different designers, there's less variation between the ways different designers approach things than in crochet. Crochet, it seems a little bit kind of Wild West, that you can go and do whatever you want there. And so I can see why you would feel that with crochet if you've moved from designing knits into crochet, where it's perhaps not as clearly defined how traditionally people do things with it.
Yeah, and I also struggle with, I'm a very visual person. So I personally want a chart when I crochet.
Yes.
Most people want written instructions.
Yeah.
And when I try to write one stitch after another, I'm through half the row and I'm like, where am I? What am I doing? What is even happening here? So I really struggle writing that out,
Yeah.
especially when it is a bit more complex of a pattern and not just do the same 3 stitches all around or until the end of the row. So both when working from those patterns and when writing it, I get really lost in that and I find it really difficult. But also good software to make charts for crochet is expensive, which I can't afford at the moment. And the free software is a pain to use.
Yeah. And even the paid ones there's quite a learning curve there in being able to use them really effectively as well, I think. So I will move on to Andrea for the same question there. Do you feel that your Tunisian crochet and your crochet designs and your knit designs have a lot in common, or do they have very distinct differences?
Yeah, I think they have a lot in common because it's the same person after all. But I have the opposite problem. I started with crochet and I knit Eastern European style. So when I have to write up a knitting pattern, for me it's very difficult because I don't have the same stitch mount as most knitters do. So it's extra work. And for crochet, I first draw the charts if I can, and then write the pattern based on the chart. So I look at the chart stitch by stitch, and then I write the instructions. Otherwise, it's crazy. You cannot do anything complex without that. And then there's the testing where people tell you that you messed up. Because it's really difficult to follow along stitch by stitch, and you have to say where you put that stitch. And yeah, it's not just do this amount of X stitches and then Y amount of that kind of stitches. You can make many stitches in one place, or you can skip many, or yeah, you have to mention everything. But I can't hear you.
Oh, and whereabouts in the stitch do you put it? Are you putting it in through the head of the stitch, the back loop, the front loop, the post,
Yes.
the side
Yeah,
of the
so
stitch, or some new place that you've
yeah,
decided to put a stitch? Yeah,
that's why it's complex.
definitely.
But I do draw my own charts and I use vector software.
Mm.
So yeah, I agree. The free stuff is unusable except for Inkscape, which is also free, but it's a vector software. So you draw your own stitches and then you can move them around and organize them however you like. So maybe it helps, Yvonne.
Okay.
Okay, what was the name of the boot one?
Inkscape, ink like
Inkscape.
writing
Oh,
ink,
yeah.
and skip. Yeah,
Thanks.
it's free and open source, I think.
Yeah, I use that one as well. Although I've had some problems with it, and I find it is really good for the crochet stitches. You can put in also, you can design your stitches, but you can also use it with a font, a crochet stitch font as well. So that can be a nice way of getting started on that one if it's something you try. I don't know, Jackie, whether you do other crafts as well and you want to have anything to add on there. I know your designs are as knitted designs, so.
Oh, I do so many crafts. I do so many crafts. It's interesting listening to this because I do crochet, but not, enough to do some fairly simple stuff. But I think my brain doesn't quite work in necessarily the right way for crochet, but in listening to this, I've always tried working from written crochet patterns, and maybe I should be going for the charts, because I definitely prefer a chart to knit from. So I don't know why that didn't occur to me before. So that's given me something to kind of go, okay, I'll give that a try. And I actually I did a Tunisian crochet workshop earlier this year, so have done just very basic Tunisian crochet, but was thinking of trying some more stuff with that, because yeah, what I need is more hobbies in amongst the weaving and the spinning. And I did a pottery class the other week.
Oh, that's amazing. So might some of those crafts make a feature in some of your designs, or do you want to keep your brand a very knit specific brand?
I think I want to stay with the knitting, partly because I never really set out to become a knit designer, and I really, really enjoy it, and I'm very glad and grateful that I am now. And it took me a little while to kind of go, oh, to kind of going back to what Yvonne was saying of like, can I do this? But I spent quite a while being like, but I don't have, I'm self-taught, I don't have any qualifications in this. Can I do this? Is this okay? You know, I've been knitting for 30 years, but I like having other crafts that I'm not trying to monetize. And I like having hobbies that are hobbies for relaxing and for switching off. And that's why I kind of am happy to keep crochet and Tunisian over there and have knitting the job. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's really lovely. It's nice that you have something that you can, you've got a more clearly defined boundary there. If you're doing Tunisian crochet, it's your hobby, it's your relaxation time or time to experiment and not kind of relevant to your business. That's a great way of doing it. We have got a little bit more time. Do any of you have questions that you would like to ask one of the other designers? Andrea, go ahead.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you if you create designs seasonally, or you just go with whatever ideas you come up with.
Okay, shall we start with Yvonne on that
Either.
one? Oh,
Yeah.
It depends. Like obvious season themed stuff, like the Christmas stocking, I try to get out in the season. That's why I'm still publishing it now, because I know if I don't do it now, it will sit around somewhere until next year, and then I will be like, oh no, it's almost Christmas again. I still haven't published it. But and I try to get hats out more in the autumn winter, because nobody will buy a new hat pattern in the middle of summer and knit it. It's kind of not. So if I have a design that does not fit the time of year when it's done, I try to push it a bit so it works better. But in general, I'm not necessarily designing for the season. Like I started my lace sweater in late summer, but then decided, okay, it's not going to be done in a reasonable time frame where it makes sense to publish a cotton fingering weight lace thing. So I can put this aside and focus more on the stuff that will work at this time of the year. But yeah, I don't always have the ideas in the time frame where it works out.
okay, thank you. Let's go over to Jackie with that question then, please.
Yeah, I'm sure having heard about my slightly chaotic design process, it won't come as a surprise to know that I don't design with particular seasons in mind. I will just kind of knit whatever I want to knit, which quite often means that I will be sort of knitting something that, well, I'll be like, do you know what? I need a new sweater. But kind of like Yvonne, I will then try and make the release schedule so that it makes sense. So I have a cardigan pattern that I finished and got photographed over a year ago, but I didn't manage to get it done in time for this spring this year. So that's like one of the next ones on my list to write up to try and get it released for spring next year. Saying that, I realize I do need to get on with it. So, yeah, but you know, you don't want to be releasing a really thick, like cable down sweater in the middle of August.
Oh yes, you wouldn't want to be knitting that, would you? In the middle of
A couple of
August.
years ago, my dad's birthday is in August, and a few years ago I knitted him a colourwork cardie in Let Lopi in the middle of a heat wave, and it was horrendous. Yeah, so there's definitely I aim to release at sensible times, but don't always pull it off. So,
Although again, we have to think we do have knitters and crocheters. We're all in the Northern Hemisphere. We do
yeah.
have knitters and crocheters in the Southern Hemisphere. So sometimes I think it can work out well. Perhaps for those people to get something new occasionally, because most designers do seem bound to a kind of Northern Hemisphere release schedule if they do season designs, I think. Andrea, did you want to tell us about your own process for that, if you release seasonal designs in
Oh, I
season?
just wanted to feel less guilty for not publishing the at the exact time, because yes, I also think about those in the Southern Hemisphere, but I also know that people need time to make the things for the season, and so ideally we should be publishing way ahead. So in August, yes, you should probably publish the thick Aran sweater, because people need time to make the sweater, and it's, I don't know, 2 months maybe, and then the cold season starts. Yeah, I'm a mess at this, so I try to publish around that time, but you never know how long something will take to design and then to test and get published.
And I think again, I know both Andrea and Jackie have designed for magazines as well. So sometimes your pattern comes back to you at the wrong time of year for that particular design. And then you have to think, shall I release it now immediately because there might be people who want that? Or should I really wait until the appropriate season again, but not have that pattern available? So there are lots and lots of different factors there. So we're really coming very close to the end of the time now. So I have some little finishing bits to do. I will put your links in the chat again, so anybody can find their way to your website and find your wonderful designs that we've been talking about. And we'll also be saving the recording and hopefully having that on YouTube fairly soon, so that if you want to share it with people who you know weren't able to follow the recording today but might like to see you chatting about your designs, you'll be able to share it there. So I am going to just thank everybody who came. Hopefully Anne, who joined us in the audience, will see this a little bit later on. And especially thank all of the designers. It was wonderful hearing about all of your businesses, your new designs coming up, the way you think about things. And it's just going to make making those patterns more enjoyable when we know about your processes behind them. So I'm going to suggest that anybody watching takes a look at our schedule if they would like to see any more of these designer panels, because we've got more of them coming up later in the month. I'll also add a link to our schedule there. So I'm going to say goodbye to everyone now, if you want to say goodbye, and then we'll sign out.
Thanks. It was lovely to chat to you all.
Thank
you, Joanne, for hosting, and
Thank you,
it was nice to meet everyone.
Thanks for coming, Andrea.
Thanks for hosting, and I had a great time doing this, and it's always interesting for me to not just answer questions myself like in the AMAs on Discord, but actually hear some other designers answer those same questions. So that was really fun.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to stop the recording now. Stop the